Do you want to have a very quiet gaming room, or maybe set up a projector on your ceiling and you need to run your cables across? Well, for that you're going to need a long cable for your video output. But the problem with the long copper cables are either you have to buy really expensive ones which are really thick, or you're actually just limited by the length of it and the signal simply degrades. Well, for that you can actually use fiber optic cables and have a little connectors basically working almost like a network cable. We have the transceiver and receiver to encode your data, and that way you can actually extend that length by a considerable amount. This is where these cables come in from Ruipro. So we have DisplayPort as well as HDMI cables here that can run really long lengths. We have 10, 20 and 50 meter cables, and they can actually go much further than that. And that's because essentially it's almost like a network cable. You have your transceiver and receiver, and then basically you have your HDMI and DisplayPort. And if you really want to, you can actually change between them with the same cable. So you can make your run and just change the actual adapter on the end. So that way, if you ever upgrade in the future, you don't actually need to rerun it and bring in specialists to rip up your walls and do your work. You can just keep the same cable, change the adapter and move on from there. So we have two main types. We have the DisplayPort cables right here, and we also have HDMI. So this is HDMI 2.1, which can support up to 8K, which is 4K at 120 Hertz, or 8K 60. So this is kind of the highest end right now. For the DisplayPort cables, we can go up to 32 gigabits, which is 4K at 144 Hertz, or uncompressed 8K at 60. So they claim there's zero signal loss, and to be honest, I've worked with fiber optic cables in our networking for a long time, so as long as it works on a similar fashion, I kind of believe them. Let's open it up. So we'll start with the smallest one and kind of work our way up. They do come in this nice little box. So we have the user manual. We have the little, I believe these are actually cleaning wands. We have the cable itself, quite nicely packaged. So what you'll see is you got the two ends, and you got the fiber cable itself. So this is kind of interesting. So yes, they actually have them sent really nicely, that they have their own little covers, because you want to protect the little end. Because ultimately, if you have a little bit of dust inside the cable, inside these ends, it will stop the light going through properly, and then you're kind of screwed. It's just not going to work. In here, we have the actual adapters. So DisplayPort source. You have power. And this is important. You do need power for the signal to go through, because ultimately they convert data into light and then converts it back out. These are directional cables. So you actually see that they're labeled. This one's labeled source and this one's labeled display. So you plug this into your whatever DisplayPort device that you have. And this can go into your, well, probably monitor. Some TVs now support DisplayPort, not many, but they've started to do that now. And then that way it works. And then you need to make sure that you have enough connections around there for power to power them up, both up. This is a fiber optic cable. Don't kink it. Don't try to like have really hard corners on it, because it will break. Ultimately, it's kind of glass inside. So it needs to be slightly careful with it. But to be honest, fiber optic cables now, in comparison to what they were about 15, 20 years ago, are far more durable. So you can actually go around tighter corners. They were very fragile back then. So that's why I probably wouldn't recommend them back then. But now things have really progressed. And here we have HDMI cables. So this is a 20 meter HDMI set. And inside it kind of looks the same. You have the manual, you have the little prongs, a far longer cable, packaged exactly the same way. So you have the cable, just a lot longer. I think you actually get an extra cable tie here, which is nice. And then you still have your source, your display, and you have two USB cables. Same thing, and same on this end. You can actually see that they even have little warning labels on them to make sure that you protect them, to keep it closed until installation. So if you're running this, you can take this cable and run it through your conduit, and as you can see, it has kind of like an open, like a kind of slightly sharper end, like it's a tapered off end, so you can actually pull this through tight holes inside your conduit or whatever else. And then once you have it in place, then that's when you take it off, plug it directly with this, and kind of start working with it. Same goes on this. So on the back of it, if you take this little sticker off, this is covered up, so you need to take it off and then plug in the cable into the back of it. That way you can actually keep it nice and secure and safe. And since these are not really captive, you can just sit there. That's where you have the little sticker. And it connects itself. Nice. Like, this is actually sizable. This is made out of metal. It's not plastic and cheap. It looks actually quite expensive. And then we can open up the last one. It's yet another DisplayPort cable. And it's even longer. And it's still all the same things. Yeah, it's literally the same parts. Massive cable. Like, this is now heavy, but this is 50 meters. The rest of it is exactly the same. Source, display, power, all the same cables, all the same connectors. This is what you get in the box. So it's really simple. You have the cable, which, as I mentioned, you can buy this set. Let's say you bought the 50-meter cable, install it and forget about it. And in the future, they actually do have an ability to sell just the ends. So if you just bought one kit and, I don't know, 2 years later decide, actually, I'm going to upgrade to something else, they do actually have the new DisplayPort and the new HDMI connectors coming in the future. They've promised to be supporting this on an ongoing basis. And to be honest, fiber optic cables have not changed for a long time. The one thing that I've really noticed, the connector they're using is not your typical connector that you use for, let's say, networking. It's slightly different, but hey, as long as you have the right cable, you should be able to buy their transceivers. Essentially, these are just video transceivers, and hook it up. Ultimately, look, I can roll this out across the whole house, but the signal goes through the whole thing anyway, so it doesn't really matter. If I plug in right next to it, it will still work. One massive advantage from using fiber optic cable in comparison to your normal copper wires, if you run it across in the conduit, or especially if you're like running above your ceiling, where you will likely have your also lighting cabling up there. So power interferes with data really badly because you have EMI interference, which is basically electromagnetic interference. And the problem that you have with copper, it's very susceptible to it. And if you have long run with video data going through, which is at high bandwidth, even 1% interference might have a significant impact on your experience. Fiber optic could not care less. It's light, and light does not get any interference through it. So you can literally run it next to your mains cable. You can tie it to the mains cable. You will actually be perfectly fine with that. Generally speaking, I'd still try to keep it separate, mostly for maintenance. But if you have tight space, this will work better. But you're also paying a premium for it, so that's something to bear in mind. Let me set this up now with a monitor and a PC. I'm actually going to use my laptop here just to do a quick initial testing. For the installation, what you should start with is getting your cable in the right place. So if you're installing it at a ceiling area, pull it out to make sure it's already hanging right next to the device. So I've got mine in the right places right now. So this is the coil of cable, which kind of unrolled it, and get your devices to the right areas as well. So what you do is you get the cable in the right place, find your end at the device that you'll be installing. In this case, that's where the monitor is. Take your source, so this is the display end. Take off the sticker. And I really recommend to keep the stickers and especially keep the covers handy in case you need it in the future. Take off the other end for the actual cable. And you essentially just connect them up. So it should go only one way. Yeah, there you go. And it actually locks in place. So it has the little blue pull tab to unclick. So you can see here, this goes back and forth. So that's ready to go. You just remove this and plug it into your device. So I'll do that now. And you do exactly the same on the other side. Your device end, so source. Stickers off, cover off, Only goes on in one way, so you don't need to push on it too hard. Done. Plug it in, and this should just work. Oh, no, it will not. It's not powered, it doesn't do anything. So now, find yourself a USB cable. Oh, this could be interesting. On this particular laptop, I might actually not be able to do that properly. It just fits, I think. And now what you can see is it is powered. It has a little blue light. Now I can plug it in. Let's do the same here. So my monitor does have USBs for power, so that's not a problem. If your monitor doesn't, you might actually have to provide separate power somewhere. And in some ways, that might be your actual one limitation. You're gonna have to get some power up there for your USB. Most projectors have a USB, but you might be using it for powering your Amazon stick or something else. So you might need to consider another power source. And another thing I've noticed now is it's using micro USB connector rather than Type-C. So it's directional. Not a big fan of that. So I hope in the future they have a better connectors. I think, let me just see. Yep, they're all micro. So that's not the best, but hopefully, I see my monitor blinked. We have a connection. So that's a 50-meter cable connecting over. And let's see, let's try to change settings. So open up display settings. So I'm going to do extend. So I can control that separate monitor on its own. Now, this monitor right now is set to 4K. And now it's 4K at 120 Hertz. Now it's smooth. So just as simple as that, you have a 50-meter cable connecting over and still has a 4K 120 Hertz. Just right now running off a laptop. Ideally, you would run it off a PC which can handle actual games at 120 Hertz. But yeah, let's check something. It's running at 120 Hertz, but as you can see here is my laptop doesn't handle it particularly well. But the fact is, it is actually running at 120 Hertz with some stutters. Poor laptop is struggling a bit. Ultimately, this comes down to the device you use, but the cable itself clearly works. This is a 50-meter cable that can be run across the whole house, and you can hide your PC that might be making a lot of noise. You can probably run your fans 100% in a cupboard somewhere, as long as it has reasonable ventilation. And you can have a basically silent working area or gaming area where you are. So, if you want to check out more about this cable, we'll leave a link down below. Other than that, let us know what you think. Would you buy something like this? Again, I know they're expensive, but also in some cases, they're probably one of the only things that will work in particular scenarios. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.